book 3, Sutra
25.
25.
By Samyama, on the strength of elephants comes a similar strength.
Yes, by Samyama, on the strength of elephants and other such animals, their strength is obtained. That means you do Samyama on a very strong animal, for example, an elephant. It is not that the elephant will come to you, but the strength of the elephant. You acquire that strength. If you do Samyama on the rock of Gibraltar, you will become real rocky. That means you become so heavy. You just simply stand on the scale and weigh 110 pounds. Stand on it doing Samyama on the rock of Gibraltar, and the scale will immediately burst. In the same way, if you do Samyama on a feather, the scale will record only 0. You can lighten yourself. You can make yourself heavy. It's all achieved by Samyama. Do it. Try it. Nice things will happen.
All right, he says the elephant is an extremely strong animal and is native to many of the areas where sages have roamed for thousands of years. Thus, the elephant is naturally seen as a symbol of strength. By Samyama, on the form of strength in the elephant, that form of strength comes. By Samyama, on the strength of other animals, the sky, the oceans, or other objects, a similar strength comes. Remember that we were talking about a very deep form of attention, not merely reflecting on and trying to pretend to have that strength. Samyama means concentration, meditation, and samadhi, all three on that subject of strength. As with the other subtle experiences, this is seen to be both an attachment and an obstacle. An attainment and an obstacle, and is set aside with non-attachment. I'm going to keep going. And then you go. 326, by directing the flash of inner light of high sensory activity, knowledge of subtle objects, those hidden from view and those very distant, can be attained. Sensation was used to stabilize the mind. The practice of pursuing subtler sensory experience was started with Sutra 135. For the purposes of stabilizing the mind, in the sutras of that section, the aspirant would focus on one or the other of several objects, or whatever was found to be pleasing. Inner light was used to stabilize the mind. Pursuing the inner light was also one of the methods suggested in earlier sutras 136. Thus, both the sensory awareness and light have had some foundation preparation prior to the coming of these subtler practices in this current sutra, as is the case throughout yoga. The process is of starting with the gross or outer and going even subtler and inner. The inner light dawned. Later, after having learned to practice the 8 rungs of yoga for the purpose of attaining the skill of samyama, the inner light fully dawned through that practice of samyama. Now that inner light is directed. Now in this Sutra 326, it is being explained that this awakened inner light resulting from samyama is itself directed towards any subtle object, even those which were normally hidden or very distant. The tool is now complete. In this way, the deeper exploration of the whole of the subtleties can be explored. We now have completed the tool development process. In the forthcoming several sutras, some of the subtle objects are enumerated. Once again, it is a process of encountering, experiencing, and renouncing even these subtle experiences. As with the other subtle experiences, this is seen to be both an attainment and an obstacle, and is set aside with non-attachment. What does yours say, Mish?
It doesn't say.
No? Oh, okay.
Yeah, yours said more than anything in here.
All right. Should I keep going?
Yeah, these are all just all the way
powers, right?
all the way to 29. It's just the verse.
Okay, so
I have the other book too, so if I read it and something stands out, I can share from the Carrera book too.
Okay, cool. Anything on these?
Do you want me to read 26?
Sure.
The object of this samyama is not the self, but the light of the self reflecting on the mind. By virtue of this samyama, the inner senses are illumined, resulting in the capacity to gain knowledge of things that are present but normally not perceivable.
All right, 327. Thank you, Pam. The inner sun is to be found only in meditation. It is accessible through the Sushumna channel. Oh, so by samyama on the inner sun, knowledge of the many subtle realms can be known. The thin milky white stream of energy that comes through the center of the chakras. Through meditation on centers such as the heart, Anahata chakra, or the space between the eyebrows, Ajna chakra, the sun will eventually be revealed. To clear the clouded mind so as to be able to find the sun is one of the key reasons for all the various practices of yoga. The realms and non-attachment. These realms, regions, or universes are vast, and for one seeking self-realization, these are encountered and set aside through higher non-attachment and grace. The commentary on the sutra by the sage Vyasa describes 7 such worlds. Many of the better translations include the commentary by Vyasa. Gross, subtle, causal realms. I think you read about this in Yogi Ramacharaka's book, Pam, the lessons book, where he talks about for descriptions of the levels of the gross, the subtle, and the causal beyond, and also the higher consciousness, see these articles. So there are a bunch of articles on dimensions of consciousness. So you guys know Gayatri Mantra? If you look at the translation, it's actually telling you that within yourself, there are like universes, like you have the center, which is sort of the even place where there's good and bad. You have the higher realms or chakras that are connecting you to something bigger. And then you have the lower chakras, which are the more hellish chakras, quote unquote hellish chakras, where if you get sort of mired in them, you'll probably not be having the most easeful life, such as, it's like the 4 fountains, sex, food, power, right? All those can get us into trouble. So those are the lower. So we have this universe within us that is representative of the universe outside. They talk about, so I don't know if it's like an esoteric way of describing something that's within us, or if they're actually talking about the universes. They say that there are planetary systems, like in the cosmos, that have different physics qualities. It's like all this stuff. The first time I read it, I was like, oh, that's strange. Maybe that's like a fantasy story or something. And just recently, they came out, right? Like in the midst of this pandemic, did you guys read that they discovered a parallel universe running along ours where time runs backwards?
No.
So yeah, and I was like, oh man, maybe it's true. And the detail of the physics qualities, like, you know how like physics has certain laws here in this planetary system, things run the way we can kind of mathematically expect them to, but in these other planetary systems, things run differently. And the yogis teach that, like, sure, you can, and this is like, take it with a grain of salt. They say you can incarnate here, or depending upon your karma, it's not just you may incarnate in different points of time here, but you may incarnate in different planetary systems throughout the universe, depending upon your karma. So there are certain planetary systems where, like, we feel like Earth is frustrating, right? Because it's so dualistic. It's like, if there's a good, there's also a bad. If things are great, things are also going to be shitty, right? If there's light, there's also darkness, because it's like the middle ground Earth. Like I think it's Tolkien talks about that in his fantasy books, right? It's like the middle Earth. But in these higher planetary systems, like the higher up you get, if they sort of systematically organize them, they have like more goodness, and things are easier, and like it's easier to find enlightenment and in those body systems, and people live longer and all that stuff. And then in the lower ones, there's less awareness of the people. It's harder to find enlightenment. It's leaning more towards like the dark. So yeah, it seems like when we first read the first chapter is the very like shallow layer, like the top layer, and then we keep getting like, how do you address these, like first we're dealing from the mental state, then we have to deal with it from the physical state, and then you go into like that causal realm through samyama, whereas you're like addressing all the different parts of, I guess, this individual existence. But yeah, Gayatri Mantra is like a very powerful mantra. They have all these rules if you're going to chant the Gayatri Mantra, but it's like all the secrets of the universe in Gayatri Mantra. So I don't know. I feel like I can't remember reading any of these. We're coming to them now, and I'm like, oh my, like it's this huge revelation. Like, oh my, there it is. I don't know if I ever read Ganasara's translation this far along. So yeah, if you meditate on the Sushumna channel, it brings you understanding, I guess, of the inner realms, and I guess the outer realms are connected to the inner realms. So once you understand the microcosm, you understand the macrocosm. I will have to research more. So the next one, Pam and Micheline, anything in yours on this one?
I can read from this one. The sun is the center of the solar system, and all light depends on it. Know the source, and you will know the manifestations. By knowing a part, you can know the whole. The whole is reflected in the part. This concept is central to Eastern healing modalities, where, for example, by taking the pulse, observing the tongue, or palpitating the abdomen, the practitioner can evaluate all organs and systems. Acupuncturists use points on the ear and the scalp to treat every part of the body. Iridologists can evaluate all bodily symptoms by examining the eyes, and reflexologists treat imbalances in any body part by massaging reflexes on the hands or feet.
Well, that clears it up. Okay, cool.
Well, two things. The first thing was early on when he was talking about stand on a feather, stand on the rock of Gibraltar, and you feel differently, etc. That's basically the difference between mass and weight. You know, that's what that is in modern day, well, not so modern day physics. Or at least that's another way of stating it. And then the second thing from what you just read, Pam, completely fled my mind because I need more coffee. I'm serious. It's gone already. What was the thing you just read?
Like the macrocosm represents.
Oh yeah. So I'm thinking if you think about it in terms of physics, for hundreds of years, you know, the view of Galileo was taken as this is how the world and the universe works, but it was it was a view of only one micropart, and it was wrong. That's not how the universe works. That's how it appears to work in one particular. It's almost like you close, you know, you build a wall, you build a little window, you look through, and there's Galileo. And then, but when quantum physics was first described and discovered, that is a much bigger window on how it all works. And it looks totally different, and it explains a lot more. So, you know, maybe the yogis had it, but everybody's still looking for a way to pull, you know, to knock down the wall so that both those windows no longer exist and you just see clearly.
Yeah, I mean, what the yogis, you're making me think of this lecture I always give in training about what the yogis teach about sort of the nature of the material.
Yeah.
It's like, so Einstein studied the Vedas. He was very interested in Vedic mathematics and Vedic science, and I always wonder like what ideas came from it out of what he teaches. But
yep.
You know, that whole experiment, like if the train is going faster than the speed of light, like what you said about mass, if the train is going faster than the speed of light, it doesn't get lighter, it gets heavier, it gains mass. And the yogis teach that matter, consciousness, and energy are one and the same thing. So if it's going faster than the speed of light, it's gaining energy, and from gaining energy, it gains mass. And if we are consciousness, that means that there's some capability to affect matter, and I don't know, I might be like drawing conclusions to rationalize this this sutra, but that just made me think of that when you said about mass. Like, it actually made it seem logical that you could stand on a scale and make it get heavier.
But you can, depending on where you are. There is a difference in your weight at the top of Mount Everest than in a Sahara Desert, which is below sea level.
Yeah.
There's a difference in your weight. I mean, for me, it wouldn't be enough, but on the other hand, it's there.
Well, it's like it affects the pressure when you bake too. It's like you can't bake
Yes.
a cake in the Sahara the same way you bake a cake on
That's right. That's right. Yes, it's true.
Does it have to do, and I might be completely pulling into something else, but you know how like when we stand in mountain pose and you like really ground and your body seems to get heavy?
That's an interesting connection. Yeah, maybe that's
like,
what they meant by mountain pose.
Like, does that have anything to do with this? And even like when you do the like yoga nidra and you feel your body like warm, but then you feel your body cold, and or like your body lifting, like, does it have to do like?
Yeah, maybe it does. Maybe that's why it's so beautiful.
I don't know. That's what it's making me think about.
Because when you're in that place in nidra, it definitely feels like when you're in samyama, where it's almost like the place right before you fall asleep and you're not really thinking that much. That's what samyama feels like, that causal field. It's like, and then I guess trying to manifest in there, because it's all about sankalpa, which is creating deep set intentions that affect your subconscious mind in yoga nidra. And that's what samyama is. It's like those seeds that we're planting. That's a great connection, Micheline. But I read something once, I don't remember what book it was. I feel like it was one of the guys, one of the gurus who founded one of the retreat centers upstate. And it was like a student that was talking about this narrative of when he met him one time, and he would move into deep meditation practices and suddenly his body would spontaneously enter into yoga shapes, yoga asana poses. And what he was explaining was that the way that asana was ever created was like the way that prana was manifesting through meditation was causing the body to react like a spasm, or like when you sneeze, like an unintentional thing. And that's how the yoga poses were created, like through the manifestation of meditation. And it's making me wonder it's like connecting to what you're saying. Like, if like every pose is meant to be a meditation on the thing, like some of them are meditations upon a certain teacher of the lineage, like like side plank is one of the Vashistasana is Vashishtasa. He was like one of the sages that would counsel the kings, and you're supposed to like manifest the idea of that. And then in warrior pose, there's the story of Shiva taking his dreadlock and throwing it into the ground, and it becoming this like fierce warrior that killed everyone at this party. It's like, that's the kind of energy, you know, when you start to understand the stories behind each thing, or like a cat or a dog. Like, I guess I do wonder if maybe this whole thing is supposed to be deeper than we're teaching it or experiencing it.
When you say maybe this whole thing, do you mean the different poses are supposed to be deeper than what we're experiencing?
Yeah, like maybe the asana.
It would be interesting to go to a class that focused on just a few poses, because how many can you really focus on seriously and really spend the time focusing on those poses, and not just the right, you know, the proper breathing and proper alignment, which reminds me to sit up straight, proper alignment. But, you know, where did these come from?
Yeah.
So come to my kids' class. That's what we do.
It's really funny.
Well, that actually, that would be fun.
In a very funny way.
Yeah, yeah.
There are even certain traditions of yogis that when they do asana, there's a mantra associated with each posture that they do, that they chant, and they say the vibrational quality of the chant changes the nature of the posture and the experience of the posture.
Yeah.
I have a lot of friends who grew up in Vedic culture, and they post stuff on the internet all the time of like what the Vedas taught. They would say that they would move. Here's a crazy one. The way that they would build with stones that were so big that a human couldn't carry them, is they would set up sonic booms essentially, and that would move the stone. Like the vibrational sound was so powerful that they could break stones, move mountains, and it was all this like scientific thing to do it. And I was like, oh man, maybe that's how they built the pyramids. Or like, I was like, you know, it makes your mind go like, how did they do that back then when there was no technology? But then you hear the stuff that, like, you know, if you grew up in a Vedic culture, you know, this was the thing that they talk about that they used to do. And it's like, okay, so maybe if each posture has an energetic quality. If you're chanting in the posture, maybe it's, I don't know, it's like deeper than I was aware of.
Well,
Have you
chanting
guys-
is definitely going to change the nature of the posture, because how you chant and what you chant affects your breathing, right? And
Yeah.
breathing is definitely going to affect your posture. So that's, you know, I mean, setting up the pyramids and moving the stones aside, although that is an interesting idea.
It's
It really is,
interesting.
and it would make a great short movie. I would
Right?
love that. But if you set that aside, you just think about it. Yeah. If you chant something different while you're doing one posture, you chant two different ways. It's got to change somehow. And it's got to mean something different. And I would bet one is going to resonate better and feel more of a whole than another. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
And
So
you
one of
have
you
to-
guys should develop a class like that.
All right. We're getting workshop.
Just in your spare time, just do it.
I feel like I could see Renata running something.
Oh
like,
yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yes.
She called me yesterday. I'll call her and tell her about our conversation. See if she'll do it. Yeah, I
But
mean,
even-
vibration, you have to like in certain, if you're in the Brahmin caste and you're leading some kind of Agni Hotra, you are supposed to pronounce the mantras exactly correctly because it represents like a vibration in the universe that you're cultivating.
Exactly correctly.
Exactly correctly. Like if you pronounce it wrong, it's not going to give the same effect of whatever you're trying to do.
That's in Reiki.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
We have symbols, and they're actually, one of the Reiki symbols is in Sanskrit.
Really?
It's all Japanese. Yeah, it's all written in Japanese, but one of them is in Sanskrit.
That's cool.
And we have to, like, one of them is really long, so I had to sing it to learn it because I couldn't get it. I couldn't get the right, and you have to say it right because then you're changing the whole thing, or it's not what it's meant to be, you know, like. So that's definitely in Reiki too. And
Have
yes,
you
one of
seen those videos where they have the sand over the speaker and they shoot the sound through it and
Yeah.
it turns into yantras?
yeah.
That blows my mind. Like if you put the megahertz of like the frequency that they say the root chakra is into the sand, what is it called? I can't remember what it's called that they do these things. It's like the symbol that we teach for the root chakra. That blew my mind because you always hear like, oh, the bija mantra for the root is da 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 da, and it just seems so surface until like you start really studying it and you realize it's like a tuning fork. Like you're hitting the sound correctly and it's supposed to attune whatever the chakra is. I thought that was so cool. And I know that so your teacher, I used to get Reiki treatments with their teacher, but I never did Reiki training with her. I think, was it her or Evangeline told me that one of the symbols is the star in the circle, the protection one. But that's one of the chakra symbols too. I wonder if it's the same one. Now I'm like, you're putting me into a wormhole. I'm gonna have to like read all about this. It's so interesting.
I feel like what you
It's
said
not-
about
what does the star look like? Hold on.
the cake though, where it has to be like the pressure, like for sound, it would have to be like, you'd have to have the right atmosphere or the sound quality would be off. Like, how do you produce that? Like in the four walls of Rev versus out in the open at the beach. How do you get it that perfect?
I don't know. You gotta study, I guess. See, like I can't. So with with my mantra work, that was taught to me by the Bhakti tradition, which is beautiful because they're just like, everyone deserves access to all the mantras. So they'll teach it to you, but they don't teach it in a way that's like the Gyanis would teach it to you. The Gyanis are like the intellectuals. That's sort of like how we're learning. And that's like how I learn a lot of the philosophy. But so they teach me the mantras, but they're like, if your heart is in the right place, Krishna will take it. That's what they say. And it's like, well, okay, sure. I have the right intention, but like, tell me exactly how to do it, you know? Like, but the people I study with are not like that. I got to find somebody else and find out how to do these mantras right.
I mean,
Well-
I don't think to do them perfectly. It's like just a question that comes up.
Yeah, I wonder, like what she was saying, like, you know, Galileo was like, okay, these are the circumstances when I put it in this very specific box. It's like with coronavirus, right? They're like, oh, when I study it in this very contained environment. So my husband would be coming and be like, they just came out with this study XYZ. I'm like, that doesn't matter. You have to know how it acts in like the whole environment, in every situation before you feel safe to like start participating in things.
That's like, there's like a word for that. It's like when New Yorkers think the New York way, it's like egocentric or something, like my way or no way.
It's not just, Pam, it's not just New Yorkers.
I feel like we're like the worst of it. But that would be another example of my way or no way. Like we do that the best because we're New Yorkers.
Or the worst.
Or the worst.
Or the worst. Because we're
But
good
as
at
a New
that.
Yorker, it's the best because I self-center myself the best as a New Yorker.
Well, you should hear what us Buffalonians say about New Yorkers.
You know what? Buffalo is great. Yeah, Buffalonians they love Buffalo. I lived in Italy. I don't know how this happened. Like everyone in my circle in Italy were from Buffalo. And then after we went home, they were like, you have to come to Buffalo. So like they brought me up and kept me there for a week. And it was so cute. You know, like their supermarket's the best supermarket and their coffee shop's the best coffee, you know, whatever segments. Their coffee shop's the best coffee shop and their main street's the best main street. And it was like so sweet.
It is the best main street.
It is the best supermarket I've ever been to in my life. I'll admit that.
Well, it was it's a different conversation. However, the egocentric perspective, I agree. It's what you are most familiar with. It's what you're most comfortable with. So by definition, that has to be right. That has to be the best, you know.
I think that's why traveling is so important.
Yes, absolutely.
And I didn't start traveling until I was like 22 years old. And that's really when I was like, oh, not everything is done this way.
Yeah, exactly.
That speaks to this moment, Pam.
Yeah.
A lot of people are getting angry because they're being told that the way that they thought the world was actually is hurting other people, and they get defensive. That's like the instant response, you know.
That's the great thing about social media, how much it's opened up the world to everybody too.
Yeah, we've all become very informed. That's just nice. It's good.
The best is still living someplace else for a while.
Oh yeah.
Because then you are it's like jumping off the diving board into the deep end, and it's buying a quart of milk is different. It's not a quart anymore for one.
Right.
You know?
I always say I don't have many regrets, but one of my biggest ones is not studying abroad when I was in college. But I didn't know it wasn't a tool offered to me. It was there, but it wasn't something that I was I don't know, it just wasn't there for me.
You weren't aware of it.
Yeah.
Maybe
But
one
now I
day
tell
you can go, Pam.
What?
Maybe one day you can go, but we're banned right now.
No, and
It's banned everywhere.
I've traveled to Europe. I'm not interested in living anywhere now. I feel like it's something I should have done when I was younger.
Oh,
Yeah, go. What are you kidding? It's
Yeah.
great.
seriously.
No, but I'm saying to live there. Like, I'm
Oh,
not sure if I
go
want-
live there. Oh my God. If I could, before this went down, I was like, Mark, I have to get my citizenship in Italy with my grandmother. I can get my citizen. I'm going to make you a citizen of Italy in case we got to escape. We're going to go to Italy. Like every time things get bad, I'm like, okay, let's go now. We're going to move out of the country now.
Well, last year in June, I spent 10 days on a villa in Tuscany. I didn't think I'd ever come home. I mean, my meals were prepared for me. I had a pool. Like,
Even if you have no money in Tuscany, it's magical.
Yeah, it was
We,
nice.
Oh,
we,
amen, amen.
we stayed in a house that was like, I picked it because it was like, I don't know, 65. Like it had really good reviews, but it was 65 euros a night. It was in the mountains.
Yeah.
Kyle cried when we had to leave.
Yeah.
It was in the middle. The village had 11 houses, I
And
think.
a billion dogs.
And yeah, like animal, like we walked down this little hill, and by the hill I mean from like Rev to the Thai food that's across the street from Burr Burger.
Yeah.
And there was a donkey in their backyard, and everybody was talking to us like we lived there all our lives.
Aw.
And
But
they had dogs.
they did. They had dogs. There were dogs everywhere.
Good morning.
But it's 8:15 almost.
Okay, so we'll meditate. So tomorrow, Pam, you're gonna be doing
It is 8:15.
the 328. It just keeps getting wackier.
Keeps getting
I don't think I ever read these. Or
I
maybe-
feel like I know I read them at some point, but he doesn't go into detail in Satchidanandana's translation.
This
This is
book
nice.
has a few paragraphs for each one coming up, so I can read the
Cool.
Carrera one.
Okay.
But I'm thinking if no one does show up tomorrow, and I'm thinking maybe we start doing this anyway, is having someone verbally read your newsletter for those that can't read. They can hear it.
No, that's okay. That's okay. You're very sweet. It's okay. Who can't hear or who can't read? It's
You
fine.
can't read, like people that are disabled or dyslexic. Who knows?
Oh, okay. All right. If no one shows up, then that's what we'll do.
We'll see. Otherwise, I'll just end it and go on my.
You're so supportive, Pam. Thank you.
I'm just thinking about, like, I don't know how many people, like intellectually disabled people, are coming to the Rev email, but just to be more all-inclusive.
Yeah, that's a nice idea.
Who can't read? Not everyone can read.
That's me being a New Yorker right now.
That's a privilege right there.
That is a privilege to be able to read. You're right.
And not everyone understands these words, so if they're reading them, they may get frustrated.
Well, you know what? It can translate into other languages if you put it on YouTube. There's a translator thing on the bottom. Okay, so maybe we do that.
Amanda was
I've
like,
used your letter. I've used your newsletter for Dharma talks.
Oh, you guys are embarrassing me. That's very sweet.
Listen, are you kidding? It's inspiring. Like sometime when I'm stuck,
Hold on 1 minute.
I go back to that, and
Aw.
your
It
ego's
helps.
taking over, Amanda. Those weren't your words anyway. They just came to you
Right.
and flew to the paper.
That's it. That is it. That came from all of our conversations the past month.
okay.
Okay, so we'll do breath work. Alternate nostril breathing. Take the right hand and fold the pointer finger and the middle finger to the center of the palm, closing off the right nostril with the thumb. Inhale through the left.
Could you come here just for a minute?
Closing off both.
This is for
Exhale through the right.
You really have that, so thank you very much.
Inhale through the right. Close off both. Exhale through the left. Inhale through the left. Close off both. Exhale through the right. Inhale through the right. Close off both. Exhale through the left. Inhale through the left. Close off both. Exhale through the right. You can continue like that for a few cycles. We're doing alternate nostril breathing. So. You can finish out the left side. Place both hands on the knees, close your eyes, and move into your meditation practice. Bringing the hands to prayer. Namaste.
Thank you. Namaste.
Namaste.